They smiled when she made that simple request. Some even laughed. But 2 minutes later, no one was smiling anymore. The stage lights were too bright. They washed the whole room in sharp white light. The floor shined like glass. The black grand piano at center stage reflected everything above it. The lights, the ceiling, even the moving cameras. She stepped out, slowly. Her shoes made a soft sound against the wooden floor. The audience clapped politely. Not loud, not excited. Just respectful. She wore a simple light blue dress, no sparkle, no heavy makeup. Her hair rested gently on her shoulders. She did not look like someone ready for a big show. She looked like someone carrying something heavy inside. She stopped in the middle of the stage. The judges smiled at her. The crowd waited. She gave a small smile back. Her hands were cold. When they asked if she needed anything before starting, she hesitated. It was a small pause. But in that pause lived 1,000 memories. Then she spoke softly. Could the lights be softened? Just a little? That was all. Nothing dramatic. Nothing complicated. Just a simple request. For a second, the room stayed still. One judge tilted their head slightly. Another gave a half smile. Somewhere in the audience, a few people chuckled. It wasn't cruel, but it wasn't kind either. It sounded like doubt. The stage crew adjusted the lights slightly. The bright white turned into a softer tone, but it was still strong. The ceiling lights dimmed. Just a bit. A warm golden shade touched the edges of the stage. Whispers moved across the seats. Is she nervous? Why does that matter? It's just lighting. She heard it. Not every word. But enohu. But enohu. Her chest felt tight. She was not afraid of the crowd. She was afraid of the memories bright lights carried. White hospital walls. Long hallways. The quiet hum of machines in the night. Bright lights that never turned off. She remembered sitting beside her mother's bed. The room always smelled clean and cold. The ceiling lights were too harsh, too real. They made everything feel serious. Too serious. Her mother would sometimes close her eyes and say softly, "Can you play something?" There was a small keyboard near the window. Nothing fancy. Just a few keys and a thin speaker. She would sit on a metal chair and play gentle notes. Soft music. Not loud, not fast. Just enough to make the room feel less heavy. Those were the only times the bright lights did not hurt. Back on the stage, the softened lights now created long shadows behind the piano. The air looked warmer. The black surface of the piano reflected a golden glow instead of sharp white. She walked toward it slowly. Each step felt like stepping into the past. The grand piano stood large and silent. Its lid was open. The strings inside caught the light like thin, silver lines. The bench waited in front of it, centered perfectly. She paused before sitting. For a second, she ran her fingers gently along the edge of the piano. The surface was cool and smooth. She could feel eyes on her. Hundreds of them. The audience leaned forward, curious but unsure. The judges adjusted in their seats. One folded their hands. Another tapped a pen lightly against the table. The room felt big. Too big. She sat down slowly on the bench, adjusted it a little closer to the keys. Her feet rested on the pedals, but she did not press them yet. Her hands hovered above the keyboard. The keys looked endless, black and white lines stretching across her view. She swallowed. A small breath left her lips. She was not here to impress. She was not here to compete. She was here for something else. The laughter from earlier still echoed in her mind. It was small, but it stayed. She remembered the day she first learned piano. It was in a quiet living room, a second-hand upright piano placed against a pale wall. The paint near it was slightly chipped. Sunlight came through thin curtains, drawing soft lines across the floor. Her mother sat beside her on the bench. Slowly, her mother would say, "Feel the keys. Not press, not hit. Feel." She learned that music was not about speed. It was about honesty. Years later, after the hospital nights, after the quiet goodbyes, the house felt empty. The piano remained against the wall, but the room felt larger somehow. Too quiet. She avoided it for weeks. Then, one evening, when the sun was setting and the sky outside turned soft orange, she sat down again. Her hands trembled then too, but when she played the first note, something inside her broke open. Not in pain. In release, music became her way to speak when words were too heavy. And now, on this stage, under these lights, she carried all of that with her. The judges waited. The audience waited. The air felt thick with expectation. She adjusted her posture, sat straighter. The golden lights above created a warm circle around her and the piano. The rest of the stage faded into soft shadow. The background behind her glowed in a calm amber tone. The cameras moved quietly on their tracks, zooming closer, capturing her face. Her expression was not dramatic. It was thoughtful. Serious. Her fingers lowered slowly until they almost touched the keys. Almost. She paused again. A final wave of doubt passed through her. What if they don't understand? What if they think it's too simple? What if the laughter comes back? She closed her eyes. Not to hide, but to remember. Her mother's voice, play from the heart. The audience shifted in their seats. A cough echoed from the back row. Someone cleared their throat. The moment stretched longer. Her hands rested gently on the keys. She could feel the smooth surface under her fingertips. Cool. Familiar. Her breathing slowed. Inhale. Exhale. The stage lights dimmed just slightly more, leaving a warm spotlight around her. The hall became quiet. Not curious quiet, not doubtful quiet. A waiting quiet. The kind that comes just before something changes. She pressed one key softly, testing the sound without letting it ring. Just a touch. She lifted her finger. Silence again. Then she placed both hands in position. Her shoulders relaxed. Her jaw softened. The world outside the piano seemed to fade. The judges leaned forward. The audience held its breath. And just before the first true note filled the room, she opened her eyes. She opened her eyes and pressed the first real note. It rang out softly, clear, warm, and gentle. The sound moved through the hall like a slow breath, not loud, simply existing. Another note followed, then another, forming a simple, slow, careful, honest melody. The golden spotlight rested on her and the piano, the rest of the stage fading into shadow. The audience sat in dim light, their faces barely visible. At first, a few people shifted in their seats. The music sounded almost too simple, but she kept playing, her fingers moving smoothly and steadily across the keys. Her left hand added soft chords, and the sound grew deeper, fuller, wrapping around the room. The whispers stopped. The judges leaned forward slightly. The melody carried something quiet, heavy but beautiful, like walking through an empty house, filled with memories. She wasn't performing for applause. She was remembering. The music rose gently, like sunlight at dawn, then dipped lower, almost fragile. An audience member placed a hand over their heart. Another wiped an eye. She could feel the room changing. Her shoulders relaxed. The tightness in her chest faded, and her hands no longer trembled. The piano felt safe. The melody shifted. A higher, clear, bright note cut through the silence like hope. The lighting warmed to a soft amber glow, reflecting off the polished black piano. Her fingers moved with more confidence now. The music began to grow, not in bolame, but in emotion. It carried sadness and a love that remains. Her right hand played a rising line of notes, like climbing a hill, while her left hand followed with deeper chords. The sound filled the hall completely. No one laughed or whispered. The air felt still. She reached the middle of the piece. The tempo shifted, the notes closer together, like breathing. She could almost see it. A hospital room, a quiet evening, Her mother's weak smile. "Play that one again," her mother used to say. So she played it again, on Tistash, under these lights. The melody returned, stronger, fuller, with deeper harmonies. One judge slowly removed their glasses. Another leaned back, eyes fixed on her hands. The camera lights reflected in the tears along her lashes. But she didn't stop. The music began to build again, this time with strength. Her fingers moved faster, the notes rolling like gentle waves. The stage lights brightened. The sound reached its highest point. A full, rich, deep, strong chord rang out, held for a second, then softened again, bringing the music back down slowly. The final section began. The melody became simple once more, almost childlike. It felt like goodbye. Her hands slowed, pressing the keys gently. The room remained silent. No movement, no cough, no shifting. Only music. The final line of notes rose slightly. A quiet promise, a soft thank you. Then came the last chord. She pressed it with both hands. It echoed, warm and full. She held it, letting it linger, then slowly lifted her fingers. Silence. Complete, sacred silence. For a long second, no one moved. She kept her hands resting lightly above the keys, her head slightly lowered. Her heart beat fast. Had they understood? Had they felt it? The silence stretched. Then one clap, clear and strong. Another followed, then more. The sound grew quickly. The entire audience stood up almost at once. Applause filled the hall, loud, real, powerful. The golden lights brightened, washing over her and the piano. She looked up slowly. Rows of people were on their feet, clapping, some smiling through tears. The judges stood too, one with hands over their chest, another nodding in disbelief. She remained seated for a second longer, letting the moment settle. Then she stood, turning slightly toward the audience. Her hands were no longer shaking, her eyes wet but calm. She didn't bow deeply or wave dramatically. She simply placed one hand gently over her heart. A quiet thank you. The audio laughter felt far away, unimportant. The lights that once felt too bright now felt warm. The grand piano stood beside her, silent again, but it had spoken more clearly than words ever could. The applause continued, but something else filled the room too. Respect, understanding. She looked upward for a brief second, not searching, not asking, just remembering. And in that quiet glance, it felt as if someone unseen was smiling back. The judges leaned toward their microphones, ready to speak. The crowd slowly began to settle. She waited, not with fear or doubt, but with peace, because no matter what was about to be said, she'd already played the one song that truly mattered. And somewhere beyond the lights, beyond the stage, beyond the applause, she believed her mom had heard every note.